My name is Nick Jaskolski. I'm a Life Scout with Troop 142. I'm here with Command Sergeant Major Williams, Command Sergeant Major, 2nd Battalion, 142nd Field Artillery Brigade. It's February 2nd, 2019. We're at the Armed Forces Reserve Center in Barling, Arkansas. I'm here with another scout from my troop, Chorde Bartholomew, who's assisting me. And this is a project for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. Thank you for joining me for this interview.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
So I guess we'll start. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas, February 4th, 1970.
Is that where you were raised?
No, I was raised in Altus area, went to school in Ozark.
Mm-hmm.
So grew up not too far from here.
Who are your parents?
My parents were Francis Williams,
mm-hmm.
and my dad's Billy Williams,
mm.
who retired out of the 142nd.
Oh wow! So what were their occupations? Did they have civilian jobs?
Yeah, my mom did a little bit of everything,
mm-hmm.
from raising the family to she did some factory work.
Mm-hmm.
My dad worked construction, drove truck, and was a member of Charlie Battery,
oh, wow.
2nd 142nd for 25 years.
Hmm. And do you have any siblings?
I do. Yeah, they're both in the area.
Hmm. What are their names?
Gina and Dwayne.
So it sounds so. Was your motivation for joining the Guard your father?
It was. Yeah, it's just a tradition. He was in, so I was going to do it too.
That's awesome. And did you join right out of high school?
I did. I was still in high school.
Oh,
I was
wow.
a junior.
Hmm. So you did a split option?
Split ops, I did.
That's what I did too.
Yeah.
What was your MOS? 13 Bravo?
13 Bravo.
13 Bravo. Where did you go for basic training?
Fort Sill.
Fort Sill.
Yeah.
Do you remember your drill sergeants?
I do. My basic training drill sergeant Eugene Williams,
mm-hmm.
and a drill sergeant Tucker.
What were they like?
Oh, they were awesome.
Really?
They were. They treated everybody like privates.
While you were in the military, did you receive like a special schooling? I see you went to air assault school.
Mm-hmm. I guess nothing other than air assault and some my basic NCO schools. Went to a few schools overseas while we were deployed,
mm-hmm.
but nothing major.
Air assault school. When did you go to air assault school?
1990, right before Desert Storm.
Hmm.
So.
What made you want to go to air assault school? The challenge? The
challenge, and it looked like fun.
Yeah.
I heard people talking about it, and at the time, there was plenty of money for schools, and they wanted to send people, so
mm-hmm.
I was all up for it.
So, whenever you went to basic training, how well did you adapt to military life?
About like anybody. I mean, you've been, right?
I haven't been yet.
You haven't been yet? Oh, well, you're going to enjoy it. I guess there's nothing that really, gets you ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear all the stories and everybody can tell you about it, but until you experience it,
mm-hmm.
it's yours and you make it your own.
Right.
So you do with it, what you want to, and you make it,
mm-hmm.
as good or bad as you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience and my advice to you is learn from it and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time you're not going to think it's a lot of fun, but after it's over with, you're going to think, hey, I've accomplished something and
mm-hmm.
I've done it.
Right.
Something that a lot of people won't do or can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you'll enjoy it.
While you were at basic training, did you make a lot of close friends?
Not a lot. I mean, I still remember one guy from AIT,
mm-hmm.
Larry Ethan, and me and him were good friends. Stayed in touch for a while afterwards, but it just kind of
mm-hmm.
time kind of gets in the way and life goes on. So.
Mm-hmm. So you joined. When did you initially join the Guard?
February 26th, I believe, 1987.
1987.
Yeah.
So you served in Desert Storm?
In Desert Storm, I did.
And you deployed with the Brigade?
Yes, yeah, with Charlie Battery out of Ozark.
Hmm. So what memories of your deployment in Desert Storm what are some of your memories of that deployment?
Oh, there's a lot of memories of it. Arriving in country, being put in a cement city, what they called it. It was basically a cement factory where they, I guess, made the barriers, the T-walls and that kind of stuff. Well, they turned it into a compound really for staging soldiers. So we were there for a few days, maybe a week. And I went over advanced party, so we got there about a week or so ahead of everyone else. You know, the Scud attacks in the evenings. Finally making it back to the battalion and getting in touch with everybody there. We pulled into Khobar Towers right as a Scud attack was happening. So we had to go into masks, and it was kind of funny. I remember running up the stairs to the top floor of our building, and had a rucksack, 3 duffel bags. You know, you got your pro mask on, trying to get up those stairs. Well, I look up in front of me, and who do I see? Well, my dad's running up the stairs in front of me. So I'm trying to catch him on the stairs, and I'm hollering at him. You know, of course, he can't see who I am. I got a mask, my pro mask on, so he turned around and said, "I'm going as fast as I can." So finally I took my mask off and I was like, "Hey, would you help me carry these bags up these stairs?" And so that was kind of funny. I got, you know, reunited with my dad. While I was there, I actually had my dad and 2 cousins that were deployed.
So
at the time, so.
That's interesting. So you got to deploy with your father and your cousin?
Yep.
Wow. Whenever, what was like your, like family's reaction to you and your father deploying?
My mom wasn't real happy.
Right, okay, I can imagine.
But, you know, she understood, you know, you know, my dad had been in the Guard for quite a while, and I'd been in for a few years, so she understood what was being asked. And she did a good job of supporting us. So.
And your cousins, they were also in the brigade? So.
One of them was in the same battery with us, and the other one was stationed out of Germany with a unit there, a 109 unit, artillery.
How long was your deployment in Desert Storm? Was it the duration?
It was a 6-month, 179-day deployment basically, and we were in country. I was in country from like January the 15th until about June the 6th or so when we left, somewhere in that time frame. So I think we got back home June the 7th, 91.
So what kind of friendships and camaraderie did you develop in that deployment?
Oh, I've said all those guys that I deployed with, I'd been drilling with and grew up with, you know, for most of my life, or the 3 years I'd been in already, had, you know, already been working with them. So there was, you know, quite a few friendships, especially on a gun section. You know, you get real close, especially when you're deployed and living together like that. So quite a few.
Do you still keep in touch with a lot of your buddies?
A lot of them, yes, I do. Yeah, I still see them. A lot of them around town. They actually had a Charlie Battery reunion back in 2014, I believe it was, and seen a lot of those folks that deployed with us during Desert Storm and others. But you know, they showed up, so that was pretty interesting and good to see a lot of them.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So while you were deployed in Desert Storm, how did you keep in touch with friends and family back home?
You wrote letters, or you went to random spots out in the desert where they had phone booths set up in tents, and you would stand in line for hours to get in and have a 10-minute phone call back home.
Wow.
And so it was pretty interesting to you know, get on a phone, and they actually had large GP, you know, large tents set up with homemade phone booths inside with there's 3 to 4 phone booths or phones inside of a little stand they'd built to give you a little bit of privacy, and you'd get on the phone, they'd give you a number to dial to get out and call home.
So whenever you came home from that deployment, what was like the community and family?
Oh, it was outstanding. I mean, it was like a hero's welcome, you know. You come home and everybody was, you know, cheering on the sides of the roads. Like when we landed and was headed back to Fort Sill, the sides of the roads were just lined with people.
Wow.
As we were driving by in buses, you know, they were cheering, waving flags, and you know, it was unreal. And then once we got home, they had a big celebration in Little Rock for the whole brigade went up and, you know, marched from a location over in North Little Rock all the way to the Capitol, and all along the way there was people lined, you know, cheering, wanting to shake your hand. And
Wow.
so it was a lot of support for us.
Whenever you came back, what was it like transitioning from military to back to your civilian?
It was a little difficult, you know. I mean, and I've been deployed a couple of times, and it's kind of the same every time you come home. You know, while you're gone, you're deployed, you've got a weapon, you've got a mask, you've got things that you carry around, you know, and then you get home and you don't have to worry about those things. You seem like you're forgetting something every time you walk out of the house. It's like, I know I've got to carry something with me, but so a little transition, nothing too bad, you know. Getting used to being around people and around civilians and around your family again. It was a little bit of time, but nothing too bad.
Whenever you came back, or whenever you were deploying, your civilian employer, were they able to kind of like work around?
Oh yeah, they were supportive, and I worked for the state at the time, so you know they understood.
Yeah. So after Desert Storm, if you don't mind me asking, how many deployments did you go on after?
I've been on 2 deployments since Desert Storm. One Operation Noble Eagle, which was a stateside deployment. I went to I was still with Charlie Battery. We went to Fort Polk for 11 months.
Oh wow!
And then the last deployment, I was Bravo Battery's first sergeant, and we were going right at 17 months, or on active duty for 17 months. We were 1 year in country, boots on the ground. So the train up and then the time coming back, the whole deployment altogether was almost 17 months.
Oh wow!
So,
and that was Operation Iraqi Freedom?
It was. It was. I'm not sure which one it was. There's so many of them, but it was Operation Iraqi Freedom.
And that
it was 06, 07.
And that was with Bravo Battery?
Yeah, I was with Bravo Battery at that time.
So how different was that deployment versus
It was a lot different. It wasn't an artillery mission. It was a security type mission. You know, our unit was doing basically force protection stuff for a seaport, embarkation to debarkation, and we had units at the Kuwaiti Naval Base as well. So we were stretched out from the Kuwaiti Naval Base, which was kind of in the southern part of Kuwait, all the way up into Iraq, and they kind of split all of us up. So we were spread out for a pretty good distance, but it was a completely different mission, to different task. You know, it was no artillery involved, so it was basically just being you're basically military police.
Right. So on your second deployment, you were there for about roughly 17 months, right?
Well, we were in country for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
But the whole deployment, from the time we started train up, and then from the time we came off orders at the end of it, was right at 17 months. So.
And then when you came home from that deployment, how was it similar to when you came home from Desert Storm?
Oh yeah, it was different, especially going back to work. A lot different, especially being gone that long compared to, the basically 6 months or so for Desert Storm. It took a little bit more to, adjust back to the civilian life. But again, it's just one of them things you adapt. And of course humans aren't too good at adapting. We like routines and
right.
But it's I guess one of the things that change is always going to happen. So
right.
We just have to be flexible and get used to it.
During your deployment in Operation Iraqi Freedom, how different was it communicating with family then?
Versus cell phones, email. I don't think I wrote a letter one really, other than maybe a couple for different types of things like the schools and that kind of stuff, replying back to them. But for the most part, talking to my wife and family at home was through emails and on the phone. And they was a lot better. I mean, we had phones in our area of operation, so you didn't have to drive miles to get to someplace they set phones up. But it was
right.
a lot better as far as communication went.
And when you deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom, what was your family's reaction to that deployment?
Well, at that time, my mother had already passed away, so she wasn't, around, but, of course, my dad, he knew he'd already retired by then, and, he knew the deal. My wife, she'd been, through the deployment to Noble Eagle, so she understood kind of what was going on, and, of course, none of them real happy about it, but,
Right.
They knew we had a job to do, and
Mm-hmm.
like I said, my family does a good job of supporting me.
And on your deployments, what sort of you on your second deployment, you made there was like a lot of camaraderie and friendships in that one.
Oh, yeah.
You
And I still stay in touch with several. A lot of those are still in the different units here in the Guard, so I still see them, and we talk, and but, yeah. And some of the others, I see them out in the civilian world at times, and they'll come up and talk to me. And,
Oh, wow.
so yeah, it's still there.
That's awesome. Have you ever just like been at the store and see one of your old army?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow. That must be
Yeah,
beautiful.
I was at a Walmart in Rogers and run across one of my soldiers that was there, and we talked for a little while. So yeah, you just never know when you're going to run into somebody that you served with.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Back in your first deployment, whenever y'all would have I guess, recreation, what would y'all do?
Well, for recreation, we had found an old net and some rope, and we made a volleyball net, and we had found a volleyball in a car. I guess somebody picked up and found one in an abandoned car, and that was our recreation. Whenever we had downtime, if we could, we stretch a volleyball net out. We had plenty of sand, and we played volleyball.
Wow, that's really
So,
oh, that's interesting. So whenever 9/11 happened, where were you and what was your kind of reaction?
I was at work. I worked at the time. I worked for the U.S. Forest Service, and I was in my office in Clarksville. And of course, they come in there and we watched it on TV unfold, and then I guess my reaction was like everyone else in the nation, was just like couldn't believe it, and basically at that time was thinking that we was going to get called up again.
Right.
And of course, it took 5 years later we did, but yeah, it was kind of disbelief.
Yeah.
Like really, that's really happening.
Yeah. And whenever on your second deployment, Operation Iraqi Freedom, you worked. Were you still working for the state at that time?
No, I worked for Rogers Police Department at that time.
Oh.
Whenever I got deployed.
So I imagine they were probably like really good about you coming back and getting.
Oh
back
yeah,
on
yeah. They were real supportive. There was several of us that worked for them. At least 3 of us that worked for Rogers, and when I was there, that deployed. So they lost for a short time, 3 officers.
Oh wow.
Off there. Of course, they were a pretty good sized department, so it wasn't like it really impacted them a whole lot. They had plenty of people to backfill. So.
And do you think so? You were a police officer.
Yes.
Do you think your time in the military helps you with being a police officer and vice versa? Being a police officer help you with?
I like to think so. I mean, it's dealing with the public, dealing with people. So I like to think that one supports the other. At times you need to have that command voice and that, to get across and get people's attention sometimes. So yeah, I think they both support each other.
And what kind of how did your time deployed? How has it affected your life and everything?
It's life experience. It's I think anything you do is going to help you down the road. I say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
It's life experience. It's something to put in your toolbox and use somewhere down the road for hopefully for better. Help you adjust to something. I guess there's difficult times, so living like that for a while, it helps you learn to appreciate the good things when you have them. So yeah, I think it helps down the road.
What sort of life lessons have you learned from the military?
Life lessons from the military. I I guess there's a lot of them there. Some of them we probably don't need to discuss on tape, but again, learn to appreciate the good things when you have them. Learn to make do with as little as you have, with what you have. Like I said, when we went to Desert Storm, it was a come as you are war. We went with what we had, and we made the best of it. And of course, that's one thing I've learned about guard units. Wherever they go, they make the best of where they're at. And every time we've ever deployed, we make it better. We try to build and make it as, make it our own wherever we're at. And you kind of see by that picture behind you there,
Oh yeah.
they kind of left their mark there on that barrier. But yeah, I think making things a little better for you down the road is a good one to.
Over all the years that you've been in the military, have you ever worked with or had worked with NCOs that had inspired you?
Oh yes.
I've been kind of like mentors.
Oh yeah, there have been several along the way, and I always try to tell people, even if you got a bad NCO, learn from them. That they can teach you a way not to be. If for some reason that NCO is not doing what he's supposed to do, and learn from that. But I've had a lot of good NCOs that taught me to take care of my soldiers, give me examples of how to take care of them. There's been hundreds, so yeah, a lot of them that have been there to set the right example and do what you're supposed to do to be an inspiration and a good NCO, and I hope I'm that to some soldiers. Some of them I may not be, and even if I'm doing something wrong, I hope I'm teaching them something to they'll learn from my mistakes and do it better themselves.
It's kind of going back to when you were in Desert Storm, what were like the, I guess, like living conditions? Like you live in a barracks or?
No. When we first got there, like I said, we were in a tent city, basically in that cement factory.
Yeah.
And it was, I bet there was 30 or 40 of us in a tent, just stacked in there next to each other. From there, we went to what they call Khobar Towers, which was like large apartments. And the Saudi government had built them for the Bedouins, which they never come in out of the desert, never used them. So we utilized them for our military when we were there. And we were there for, I don't know, maybe a week. It wasn't very long. We were, once we got everybody together, they shipped us out to the desert, and we started getting our equipment in. And from there, at that point on, we lived in squad section tents or just on the ground on a cot. It was we were just in the desert. So, and like I said, you tried to find the best place to get out of the elements as you could.
Right.
And depending on how fast we were moving, depending on what your sleeping conditions were going to be, a lot of times it might have been just sleeping on top of the ammo carrier or on the ground next to the gun, or just throw your cot out and sleep on top of it.
So in Desert Storm, how frequently would y'all have to mobilize and move to different locations?
On the initial, once we came across the border, we moved about every day. We were on the move, and because the war was moving so fast, that we would have to travel, for hours to keep up with it because they were gaining so much ground. So yeah, we moved a lot, and then once the war was over, we sat right outside of Kuwait in those burning oil fields for weeks. And it was, when we got there, the wind was blowing away from us. Of course, all the smoke was blowing out this way. You could see the fires, at night, there's just a glow below you. Well, as we sat there, the wind just kept circling until the smoke come around over the top of us. And it seemed like it was there for days at least. I mean, it was just pitch black. Just black, dotted the sun out. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And it was like that for several days while the smoke, and then of course it finally moved on around, and it see daylight again. But we were there by them oil wells for weeks.
Man, So those oil wells that caught fire, would y'all have to go put them out?
No, we didn't. We were strictly in basically a staging point at that time, trying to figure out what they want to do with it, so
Oh.
we were just sitting there.
And on your deployment, Operation Iraqi Freedom, what were living conditions like at deployment?
They had what they call precast buildings, PCBs, which was basically a big warehouse,
Oh.
and they would put whole units in there. It was just an open building, and of course it had lined beds down through there, and a hall, kind of like a big barracks if you've been inside like the barracks. It was like a huge barracks, and had a walkway through the middle of it, beds on each side of it, and then the guys would try to put stuff up for privacy as best they could to make a little area that was their own.
Yeah.
So, and then me and the commander, we lived in a tent that was just not too far from where everybody was at, but we lived in a tent.
And on that deployment, did y'all move a whole lot? Probably.
No, once we got there,
Secure.
we were stationed at Camp Arifjan, and the guys would travel back and forth to where they worked. So it made for a little longer days for the guys. I mean, they was working 12-hour shifts, so it may turn into a 14, 16-hour day, depending on how long it took them to get off the post, get weapons turned in. So they were looking anywhere from a 14 to 16-hour day usually whenever they worked. So.
And what kind of whenever you came home from that deployment, you were a police officer. Were there any of your you had mentioned that there were some guardsmen that were police officers also?
Yes.
Did you deploy with some of your fellow police officers?
Yes.
Also?
Yeah, there was two of them that deployed. One of them in the same battery with me. Excuse me, and the other one was at a battery. And, so yeah.
What?
No, he wasn't. He was HHB. He was HHB. So.
It's interesting that's pretty interesting that you got to serve in the brigade with some people that you also serve as police officers.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That's really interesting. How has your time in the military impacted your feelings about war in the military in general?
Well, I'm sure you've heard the expression, no one loves peace more than a soldier.
Right.
But, we're here for a reason. And I have no issues at all, when we're doing it for the right thing. And when there's a just cause at the end of it that's going to do the right, do what's right, then that's what we're here for.
And is there, what message would you like to give future generations who will watch this interview?
Well, you're asking a lot there. Well, first off, thank you for your service, and once watching this, if you can, serve, do something to do your part to help out. I mean, I'm sure you joined for tradition, right? I mean, a lot of it, your dad's in, big influence on you, probably wanting to follow in his footsteps and come along. There's not a lot of us that do that want to step up and put the uniform on and serve. A lot of times an ungrateful group that doesn't appreciate really, or doesn't see the big picture as to what we stand for and what we're there for. So, if you can, do your part to serve and help make this country, continue to thrive and be, something better. I don't know that I got any great words of wisdom for people, but I feel like my service is something I've been proud of, and I hope I've made a difference in not only soldiers' lives, but the places we've been and the things we've done. I hope that it's made a difference for the better. I know when we were in Kuwait, the last deployment, if you spoke to the older generation, they were still appreciative of the Americans and what we came there and done in 1991. The younger generation, like when were you guys born?
2001.
So a lot of you guys, weren't around when 9/11 happened. So a lot of this generation after that, a lot of them don't really seem to understand, or, you know, maybe it's like, well, you know, that doesn't pertain to me. The Kuwaiti generation that come up after Desert Storm, you know, they seen us there as an occupying force. They didn't like the Americans in Kuwait. They didn't want us around. But the older generation that was there and seen us, you know, we come in and liberated them. We took them away and took, you know, Iraq out of their country.
Right.
You know, they still appreciated what we were there and, you know, what we accomplished. So that's one of the things that, you know, I hope they don't forget, or I hope that they can keep,
Right.
you know, sharing with the younger generation, hey, that we're not there to take them over. We're not there to you know, oppress them. We were there to help them and liberate them, make them their country again. So that way they're not part of Iraq today.
Right.
So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
I kind of got on the sidetrack.
It's alright. Looking back on all the years that you've served, if you go back in time and do it all over again, would you?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I would.
That's awesome. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed that you'd like to add?
No, you've been pretty thorough.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you. Appreciate it.